Hello and welcome back to my channel, Thrifty Day. My name is Leah. I'm the creator behind Thrifty Day. On today's episode, we are going to make the bare bones of this raw, sort of primitive, grungy junk journal that you are looking at. I thought it would be fun to sort of make a more deconstructed style look junk journal for Christmas, and this is what I came up with. So this Santa napkin is actually what inspired this journal entirely. I love these napkins. I actually have them in packs in my Etsy shop if you are interested. The little back already came off, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that to the side. This is the mailer. As you can see, I've ripped everything off that I can. I was as careful as possible. I'm also going to use some of those really pretty Tim Holtz papers. And I'm also using this craft color paper packing tape. I'm just going to use it to seal up the journal. And I actually was going to use it to only do that. And then I was going to use those tan napkins to sort of decoupage over the writing on the mailer. But then I thought, oh my gosh, these actually look really nice, just covering up all of those words. So I ended up just putting that same craft tape over the words on the mailer. And I went ahead and went with that, and I ended up not using the tan napkins. Now, if you don't have that craft tape, you can just use those sort of tan napkins you can get at like any sort of eating fast food place and just decoupage them right over the words. I also liked adding this tape to places where when I had ripped off the different stickers, it was a little bit, translucent. You can see like the padding underneath. So I kind of just repaired what I could. I also added some down the center, which ultimately ended up not really being necessary because I end up adding fabric to the inside and outside. So you don't really need to do that either. We're just going to sort of make this together. I really just turned the camera on and sort of began creating. And once I decided I wasn't going to use those napkins, I started using more of that tape just to cover up even more words. So that's why you see me sort of break out the tape again and just decide, you know what, I'm just going to cover up everything. And that's a lot easier. So like I said, this Santa napkin was the inspiration. I just think he is adorable. That little classic face, just super cute. So I'm just going to cut out one of them. You actually get 4 per one napkin. I'm going to trim it up a little bit so it's a little bit nicer. I'm also going to distress it because I want everything in this journal to be very like grungy, primitive, messy. I don't want it to have clean lines. I don't want it to be everything placed perfectly. I really do want it to have a very broken down, deconstructed. Sorry about that. I do my voiceover on my phone and my phone rang. So I wanted to have a very deconstructed style. So that's what you see me doing here. And also my plan, just while we're here, is to make the bare bones of this journal in this tutorial. And then later on over in my shorts here on YouTube, on TikTok, and on Instagram, I'm going to also post how I completely embellish it and actually finish the journal. So for this tutorial, we will complete this journal in terms of sewing in the signature and completing the cover. It will look just like the journal that you saw at the very beginning. But in future videos, in shorter form, I'm going to add trim. I'm going to add metal embellishments. I'm going to add tabs. I'm going to add ink. I'm going to add glitter. I'm just going to add a whole bunch of other textures and mediums and just make it really, really, hopefully interesting. So what you see me doing here is adding some coffee stained fabric to the spine. I went ahead and coffee stained paper and tabs and tags and this fabric before I started making the journal. And my plan was I just wanted to have things next to my desk in case I wanted to add them. So as I was creating the cover here, I thought, oh, it would be cute to add a strip of that red and white striped fabric right down to the spine. And so I just wanted to measure to make sure it all fit correctly. So I just decided to add a little bit of Mod Podge down the middle, and then I realized it might be better to add a little bit of fabric tack too. So I end up adding both. I don't know that that's highly necessary, but that's what I did just to make that piece of fabric go right onto the spine. I don't want it to come off. But I don't want to add so much adhesive that it's on there perfect. I don't care if it kind of lifts or it frays. In fact, I would kind of welcome that. I think that would be a really neat look. So I went ahead and just added it on there. I will add some brads to sew in my signature. There is just one signature, but it's kind of a packed signature because I want this to be a nice thick journal. And I'm just going to add distress ink all around that fabric. And I end up adding that pretty much to everything that goes into this journal. And I'm using brushed corduroy. So the next step will be to decoupage that napkin Santa right onto the cover. I add a little bit just as a base, and then I'll just stick it right on there. And then I will also completely go over the napkin with Mod Podge. And you want to make sure it's completely adhered. You want to make sure that there is Mod Podge all under and on top. I did end up realizing later on that I had missed a spot and it kind of lifted and snagged, but it was no problem. I was able to just add more over the top, and you actually can't even tell now. Mod Podge is a really great medium. It's very forgiving. And I'm sorry I'm not in the frame here. I think I mentioned this earlier, that I completely just turned the camera on and didn't even know that if I was going to be happy with this tutorial. It was sort of like, let's make this and see how it goes. And if I like the outcome, then we'll edit and do some voiceover and post it. If not, it will just get deleted. And it turns out that I really enjoyed it. And as I am doing the voiceover to get ready to post this tutorial, I've already filmed one of the shorts adding tons of different embellishments. And oh my goodness, it is coming out so super duper fun. And so I know it won't be everyone's jam, not necessarily everyone's style, but I truly loved it. The other thing I wanted to add was some texture on the front. So I decided to add some of these sprigs. I have had them forever. I think I got them about a decade ago at Michael's, and every year I cut a little bit off. I think it started as an actual huge garland, and I think this is all I have left. So I always just cut bits of it, and I was sort of on the fence with it. So instead of gluing them on, I just set them aside and moved on to the next step, which was adding the inside covers. I am using these beautiful Tim Holtz, I think they're called like backdrops. I can't remember, but they're so gorgeous. The prints are absolutely stunning. And so I'm just cutting them down. And because I just eyeball everything, here I am cutting down 2 or 3 times. Y'all, you know me. I'm whatever fits. And like I said, I don't want anything in this journal to be perfect. I don't want anything to look perfect. So it was okay that I just kept kind of cutting. And now I'm going to distress the edges of this beautiful paper. Oh my gosh, I almost want to get another one, except that I ordered from Joann's, which I regretted doing because it turned into such a fiasco. And I only ordered like 5 things and it got shipped in 4 different packages. I'm still waiting for one. It's been frustrating. It's been frustrating. But anyway, I'm going to use fabric tack to glue this to the inside covers. These are actually 2-sided. They're so beautiful. So I ended up picking out a few more of my favorites, and I actually use them in the signature too. They're just so lovely. And I am an overgluer, so there I am putting more glue than you probably need to put that right inside the cover. And then I thought, is it upside down? It was not. And I ended up getting glue all over my hands, which made this very challenging. But whatever, like I said, I didn't want this to be perfect, and it's certainly not. So I guess that is the pro. This was very fun. I think that being creative and doing something that isn't necessarily in your wheelhouse is such a really wonderful step in being a creator. And this definitely wasn't in my wheelhouse, but it was very fun to do. The funny thing is, what actually, besides that adorable Santa napkin that inspired the cover, what actually sort of inspired me to do this was I was helping my mother-in-law decorate her house, which is something I do every year. And she has 25 years worth of my creations. And I started actually as a Christmas creator, not necessarily just journals. And so I used to make tons of Christmas things. That's how I started over 20 years ago. That's how I started on Etsy so many years ago. And she has some of my very first Christmas creations, which actually are sort of laughable, but still endearing and sweet. And many of the items I used to make were very sort of primitive and that very vintage, grungy sort of Christmas style. And so it was fun seeing all of that this past weekend and thinking it might be fun to sort of merge my love for Christmas and my previous love for primitive Christmas, and that's sort of another thing I think that inspired this journal. So, like I said, this may not be everyone's idea of a fun journal, but for me, it was just something to do, very creative and very fun. And I thought I would share it with all of you because we all have these mailers. How many times do we get these from Amazon? Let's start saving them and making journals out of them. I thought this would be a really fun way to do that. I also wanted to add these corners, which you see me doing now. I add a dot of glue, not because that it like makes them stay forever, but it makes it stay long enough for me to press them down and then use my little pliers you see here to press them down firmly. So that glue isn't necessary. It's not going to keep them onto the journal, but it is going to keep it there long enough just for me to make sure they go on as straight as possible. I used so many adhesives when I made this journal. I mean, PVA glue, I think at one point, fabric tack, Mod Podge, hot glue. I'm just using every kind of glue. I'm also going to, not in this video, but in future ones, as I begin to embellish this journal, I'm also going to age tape and use that in my journal. In this journal, I think that would be a really fun touch. I also go on to use staples in my next videos. So this has been a really fun process. And so I hope you guys are enjoying it, even if it's not something you would create for yourself. I think it's kind of fun just to watch. The next thing I'm going to do is add 3 gold metal eyelets. I'm going to use my Crocodile Big Bite to do that. I did a real quick sort of measure, and then I didn't end up even really punching the holes on them, so they're a little crooked. That's okay. Like I said, don't want it to be perfect. So if you are someone who doesn't mind things not being perfect, this is definitely the journal for you. It's just fun to do. If you don't have this Crocodile Big Bite, you do not need to add eyelets. You can just use an awl and punch holes. That actually might add to the look of a journal like this. And I thought about that after, but I had already started putting the eyelets in when that sort of occurred to me. So I just went with it. So you just see me sealing them in, because the way a crocodile works is you punch the hole first, you add the eyelets, you change the setting, and then you actually set the eyelets. It like squishes the metal down and seals them so they're very permanent. It is really great. It helps making sewing and signatures really simple too. So if you don't have this tool, I highly recommend it. And if you're going to get one, I recommend getting this one because the smaller handheld one does not go in very deep. And if you have like carpal tunnel syndrome, like I do, it's not very user friendly. It's kind of hard to use, in my opinion. So these are just some of the papers I plan on putting into this journal. I realized I wanted to add a few more of those coffee dyed pages because really what I want is a whole palette of pages to be able to create on once they are all sewn in. So right now it may look a little bit boring, not a lot of color, but I promise all of that will change. This is going to be a packed journal full of embellishments and fun. I originally had intended that once it was done to put it in my Etsy shop, but to be honest, I'm about halfway done and I am just loving it so much. So I don't know. It may go in my Etsy shop. I may keep it. I already have a December daily though, so it seems silly and frivolous to keep, but I am loving it. So the other thing I'm going to do here is add some washi tape right to the center of this vintage sheet music because it was so old it was starting to fall apart. So rather than let that happen, I added some washi tape. It's a really simple process. I just add washi tape to the front and the back, and that way those pages don't come apart. And it adds kind of a decorative touch, which I think is kind of neat too. So now you are just going to see me start folding the rest of the papers together. These are those beautiful Tim Holtz pages. I am just so in love. And if I see them out again somewhere at a craft store, I will buy more because they are stunning. I bought them last year and then again this year. And gosh, Tim Holtz just never disappoints, man. Those products are so beautiful. and I love all of them. So this is me adding more coffee stain paper. I think I have a tutorial here on YouTube. If not, definitely over on TikTok. I do it like everything else in the most low maintenance way possible. Um, all of my pages were small enough to fit into this journal, which was super nice, except for the wrapping paper. So I just trimmed that up really quick. And then I get to start to poke the holes in to sew them right into my signature. All right, so now that all of my pages are folded, I am going to start to stack them. Like I said, I don't have a lot with color, just those Tim Holtz pages and the wrapping paper, because my plan is to heavily embellish the coffee stain paper. So I'm putting more coffee stain paper in, and then I'll just sort of alternate where I put the other pages. I was very careful to make sure that there was a Tim Holtz right in the very middle of the signature because I wanted it to open up onto that really neat Christmas group picture, which you see there. I really, really loved it. So now I'm just going to sort of put them together and sew them into the journal. So you have seen me do this process a million times. I put a clip on the front cover and the back cover, and then I punch 3 holes to match the holes that I've already punched into my journal cover. And I use an awl to do that. I do mark right on the signature. Don't worry, once you punch the holes, you will not be able to see that mark, but do make it small. And then once this step is done, we'll just sew it right into our signature. It's such a simple process. If it seems like something that might be intimidating, I say just give it a go. This would be a really fun journal to do it with too, because you're not really ruining a cover. It's just an Amazon package. So it would be really fun. So I am going to start sewing in my signature. I start in the middle and I do go right back up to the top. I'm going to put a little piece of washi tape on that tail. And I start in the middle, I go to the top, I go back to the middle, and then to the bottom, and then I repeat that process. I think I have a question on one of my last videos that I haven't had a moment to answer yet, but they asked why I did it twice. And you know, my answer is it's only because it's something I've always done. I know a lot of journal makers only do it once, but I always do it twice, and I guess I just always have. This is where I snagged the napkin a little bit because it wasn't glued down well. So as you can see, I just use my finger, I grab some Mod Podge, and I just seal it up. And you absolutely cannot tell that that even happened now. So it was kind of a happy little mistake that that happened, so I could show you how you can just seal it right up. And if you're impatient like me, use a hair dryer because I did not want to wait for it to dry. So now that that is dry, I just resume sewing back in that signature. I do it twice just out of habit, and I've never had any issues with my signatures. None have ever fallen out. Nothing has ever snapped. So perhaps it's just in my brain that I have to do it twice so that everything is nice and secure. So be sure to let me know in the comments. Do you just sew in your signatures? Do you just do that pamphlet stitch once? Or are you like me? Do you do it twice? I'm curious now. And thank you so much for that question. I will be getting back to you. I will be answering a lot of my questions actually today when I have a moment to sit down at my laptop. So now that I am here in the center of the signature, I'm just going to make sure that it is nice and taut. And I'm just going to do that by moving those around. And then I'm going to tie 3 knots once again, just because that's what I have always done. So funny, things I don't think about that I do that other people, wonder why. And I wish I had an answer. I don't really. It's just, well, that's the way I've always done it. So I'm already loving it. This is super fun. Here's a quick little flip through so you can see just what those bare bones of the journal looks like. And now we are going to add some embellishments to the cover. I put some clips on just to hold it down because I haven't decided on a closure yet at this point. So I'm just going to use some hot glue, and I am going to glue those sprigs really well right onto the cover. And yes, you do need to hold them down for what seems like forever, but you want to make sure that they are entirely adhered to the journal. And I'm using hot glue to do this because hot glue dries the fastest. And even though it does dry fast, I still felt like I was here forever holding those pine sprigs onto the cover. So I'm going to add 2 so that it sort of frames the top of the journal. And then I'm going to actually add some puff balls that look like berries right to the center. And I love the way it looks. I had originally wanted to use like the real berries, but it sort of didn't look quite right. So here I am. I just got these at the Dollar Tree. I grabbed the medium size ones and I just hot glue them right into the center of those sprigs. I don't know if the camera picked it up, but I also use my Tim Holtz Distress ink because as you can tell, they're like a really bright red. So I use my Tim Holtz Distress ink and I sort of distressed them just so they didn't look so bright Merry Christmas red. And now that that is done, see, they look much less bright there. I just add a little bit of Mod Podge now, and then I add some glitter just so that they match those glittery sprigs. And once that dries, it won't look so white. It'll just look sort of Christmassy, and I am just really loving the way this looks. I decide to add this coffee stain scrap and make that the closure, and I love it. I will be adding more to the cover and obviously to the insides, and I cannot wait to share it with you, but I am just so happy with how this turned out. Well, that is it for this part of the tutorial. I'm loving what we have so far. I'm just trimming down that ribbon, and I will have many more process videos coming to show you how I embellish the insides. Let me know what you think. Be sure to follow me here on YouTube and on Instagram and on TikTok because I'll be posting those shorter videos everywhere. But thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know what you think, and I hope everybody has a really great week. Thanks so much for watching. Hit that like button. And thanks so much for your presence. Have a good one, guys. Bye.